That's right, that Audacity, the Audacity that you use to edit audio files. It was recently bought by a new company from its old previous owners, a company called Muse Incorporated, I think is their name. They own Muse Score, which is where I know them from. It's a semi-popular program to write like music notation. And they recently purchased Audacity, and very recently, and almost immediately, the first thing they did is decide to add spyware to this program. And this has had two very hilarious unintentional consequences. But first, let me go over the history. I have an article up so I can make sure I'm not getting things wrong. So it was purchased by Muse Group in May. There we go. That's the thing I meant to say. They I think they own ultimateguitar.com as well. If you know that website, if you're a guitar player, you probably know that website. They bought Audacity, and so yeah, this is the changes to their privacy policy. You can see it here on my computer. They now collect data on you, including your location via your IP address, your country of origin, your OS name, stuff about your CPU and stuff like that, non-fatal error codes and messages, OS version, and crash reports. But the biggest deal is use a country based on IP address, OS name and version, and stuff like that. That's not good. You don't want that in your GPL licensed. Is it? I think saying licensed after GPL is redundant. GPL'd software. In fact, hilariously enough, this has had a very funny consequence. So, due to EU law, in the EU, you are not allowed to collect that sort of data about children, about minors. And I think this is the case outside of the EU as well, in some places. I don't know specifically. But in the EU, you are not allowed to collect that sort of data from children, from under 13s. And so if you read the new like license agreement that you press accept when you install Audacity, it just says please don't install this please don't use this if you're under 13. It literally says, but if you're under 13, please don't use this. That's their idea of this program is not intended for those under 13. If you're under 13, please don't use this software. It's had two very, very funny consequences. The first of which is that they are now violating their own license. So Audacity is licensed under, I think, GPL 3. And obviously one of the things about GPL is that you're not allowed to restrict who can use your program. And saying don't use it if you're under 13 goes against the license that the program is under. I don't know what the consequences of that would be for the company, but that's just something funny. I doubt it will stay GPL for very long. So that's one hilarious aspect of this. And the other aspect of this is that Audacity is actually installed on the like school computers across the UK. That as part of the curriculum, you learn Audacity. And it's kind of a problem for schools to not be able to have children under 13 use that program, because that's what schools do. They teach children. And so, Audacity has just basically said we don't want 10 million children or whatever to be using our program in the UK as part of the curriculum. Like, I feel like if your program is part of a school curriculum, that is like the best thing for your company. Like I'm sure Photoshop, Adobe are so happy that a lot of schools teach Photoshop, like these sorts of things. And so Muse Group deciding that is no longer important because they just care more about collecting data than, having their... It's such a strange decision. I mean, it's not a strange decision, and no one should be surprised by this, because companies will always take the opportunity to spy on you wherever possible. Never trust any software that isn't free software. But in this case, thanks to the fact that this is free software, we know about all of this shit. I mean, they already had to disclose it, but basically, be careful with your software. Keep up to date on the news, because they won't always tell you these things. You get 1 million emails per day of some service you signed up to 5 years ago which says changes to our privacy agreement, and you don't read that shit. None of us read that shit, right? But sometimes it might be Audacity of all things that has changed, and you gotta pay attention to that shit. If I hadn't just seen a random Twitter post about this, I wouldn't have known. I would have when someone inevitably forks Audacity in 2 weeks' time to remove all of this nonsense. By the way, this is only on Audacity 3.0, which I don't even think it's out yet, or it only just came out. So if you don't update to the newest version of Audacity, you won't have all this telemetry spyware features. So you can continue using Audacity for the meantime without spyware as long as you don't update it to the newest version. Or there are other alternatives. I'm sure you can go on alternative2.org alternative.to, is that what it's called? Yeah, I'm sure you can go on there and find Audacity alternatives. And I think there are also plenty of other free open source. Anyway, I'm sure there's other free open source Libre Audacity alternatives out there already. But even if you, like me, I've been using Audacity for 100 years, I'm very used to it. So I'd rather not switch to an alternative if I don't have to. Fortunately, free software means that it will probably be forked very, very soon to remove all of the telemetry and bullshit. So just wait for that to happen. That's what I'm going to do. Not update it and just wait for that to happen. So yeah, I just find that very funny that the Audacity got bought out, and within very, very short period of time, the new owners added telemetry, which breaks their own rules of their own license and restricts their own product from being distributed to schools, which is like a goldmine for a corporation. It makes no sense. I mean, it makes sense because they just want telemetry, they want data. That's how much money. Like, I'm sure they weighed this up in their minds when they were making the decision. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they're just idiots. But, like, I would assume, maybe it's the case that you make more money selling your users' data than you do from the abstract idea that these people will grow up knowing your software as a standard. I mean, I'm sure it's easier to sell it to shareholders that way. But yeah, this is just a tragedy, really. A tragedy, but a very hilarious tragedy that will have very few consequences because I am sure someone will fork this program into something more usable very, very soon. So in the meantime, yeah, just don't update Audacity to the newest version and should be A-okay.